As these stories often do, it began in a drawing room full of titles and tension. A fading fire in Ireland, a glass of champagne in one hand and the other extended to a stranger. And just like that, with the practiced elegance of aristocracy, introductions were made. But no one in that room knew they were about to witness the beginning of one of the strangest, most emotionally entangled affairs in British royal history. Before we get started, if you want to support the channel and find all my links in one place, just scan the QR code on screen. It'll take you to Patreon, my social media, my books, everything's there. Don't worry if you miss the code now, I'll show it again at the end of the video. So thanks for your support. Now, let's get to this week's story. At the heart of it stood Prince Arthur, Duke of Connaught, the third son of Queen Victoria, a soldier, a statesman, and a royal who always did what was expected of him, until he didn't. Arthur had the look of duty carved into his bones, a towering figure with a stiff posture and a moustache that could have won military honours on its own. He lived a life defined by the protocol. He wasn't as flamboyant as his elder brother Bertie, the future Edward VII, whose mistresses were practically a government department. But Arthur had his own appetites. He was just better at hiding them. Queen Victoria adored Arthur. He was a good son, loyal, disciplined, and morally upright. As a child, he had been drilled in military bearing almost before he could walk, and spent his teenage years at Woolwich learning how to command men in battle. But behind the polished surface was a man constantly shadowed by melancholy. Prone to spells of depression, he often sought solace, not in pleasure, but in companionship. Someone to listen, to reassure, and to tell him he mattered. He thought he had found that someone when at 31, he married Princess Louise Margaret of Prussia. Known to her family as Leone, she was intelligent, proper, and every inch the Prussian princess. But the marriage, though cordial at first, slowly settled into emotional frost. Arthur withdrew into duty, and Leone, isolated and increasingly unwell, into bitterness. And then there was Leone Jerome. Yes, Leone, the woman who would turn their orderly lives upside down with a wink, a laugh, and a well-timed remark about English hypocrisy. Born in New York to a wealthy and controversial financier, Leone was a firebrand from the start. Her sister Jenny Jerome had already stunned London by marrying Lord Randolph Churchill and giving birth to a boy named Winston. Yes, that Winston. The Jerome sisters were American invaders of the British aristocracy, glamorous, bold, and totally uninterested in playing by the old rules. Leone was witty, irreverent, and impossibly charming, everything Arthur's stiff world wasn't. She married Jack Leslie, heir to Castle Leslie in Ireland, a mild-mannered Anglo-Irish landowner who was more interested in birds than politics. They had children, they had estates, they had everything but heat. So when Leone met Arthur, it wasn't just flirtation, it was combustion. At the time of their meeting, Leone was increasingly reclusive. Her health had waned, and so had her spirit. Biographers note that by their 20th anniversary, she became anxious, introspective, and quick to anger. Arthur, burdened by the quiet unhappiness of his marriage, found in Leone a radiant alternative. Someone who laughed easily, flirted freely, and didn't make him feel like he was constantly falling short. And Leone, who despite her vivacious exterior, was dealing with the quiet frustrations of her own marriage. She was drawn to Arthur's vulnerability. He wasn't a rake, he wasn't a tyrant, he was a good man, lonely, sad, and searching. The affair, if you can call it that, didn't begin in bed. It started in letters, dozens at first, then hundreds. Arthur poured his heart out in ink, long, impassioned, clumsy confessions of longing and need. He called her my bonne amie, my good friend, but between the lines it was clear he wanted more than friendship. A rare example of a letter Leone wrote to Arthur describes just how much the couple shared a tender and intimate relationship. Leone wrote,
I am so sorry, mon bon ami, that there was no letter from me to welcome you back to Dublin Tuesday. But your Sunday letter did not reach me till a day late, and I did not like to write, not knowing for certain when you returned. I was glad to hear again from you yesterday. I like to know what you do each day, and who you see, and what you think and who you like. Your letter is the event of the day, as I am very quiet here, just alone with the children and my thoughts. I think a great deal, and shall never be able to tell you all I think. The Duchess has written me a most kind letter, and I hope I shall always be worthy of her friendship. I can't help writing postscripts. I like to feel I can speak with an open heart. It is like shutting the door and having quiet talk, instead of trying to make conversation before inquisitive onlookers. I found these lines which I think you will like. Happiness. To be alone with you brings something far away from noise and tiresome crowds, and to stay thus, both together, very joyful, but solemn in perfect calm, which is peace. We hear within us the same rhythm which resembles the twin beat of wings of the same bird. To be together, to even forget that we are together. Will you write again soon? Best of friends, votre ami L.
What happened next defies belief. Instead of becoming rivals, Leone and Louis became confidants. It's hard to say if it was strategic or sincere, perhaps both, but Leone charmed the Duchess just as effortlessly as she charmed the Duke. Louis, for her part, clung to Leone with a desperate kind of admiration. She wrote her letters that were, at times, practically love notes. She praised her goodness, her self-denial, her truth. There were moments when the Duchess seemed as enchanted by Leone as Arthur was. It wasn't quite a ménage à trois, but it wasn't not either. When Arthur was posted to India for 6 months, tasked with representing the crown at the Grand Durbar, he couldn't bear the thought of parting from Leone. So he arranged for her to come along, not as his mistress, of course, but as his wife's lady-in-waiting. A convenient title, a brilliant cover. And to complete the charade, Leone's husband, Jack Leslie, was invited to be appointed as Arthur's aide-de-camp. It was a royal road trip like no other. As it sliced through imperial waters, the Duchess slept in one cabin on the HMS Renown, and 3 doors down, Leone would tap softly 3 times on the Duke's bedroom door. Later, Arthur would reflect on that voyage as the highlight of my life. And yet, even then, the emotional triangle was fraying. Leone tried to leave. The pressure, duplicity and blurred lines were all too much. But Louis begged her to stay. Don't fold up your tent, she wrote, and go away. Arthur, by then deeply insecure, accused Leone of loving his wife more than she loved him. And even the king, Bertie, couldn't resist the drama. He chuckled that Arthur had 2 strings to his bow. But Arthur snapped back that those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, especially since Bertie had once carried on with Leone's sister, Jenny. But time has no patience for passion. Louis died at 56, and with her gone, something broke in Arthur. He never truly recovered. Instead, he drifted, not recklessly, but aimlessly, through the final chapters of his life. He relocated to the south of France, where the climate was mild and the memories less sharp. There he fell into quiet, fluttering infatuations with a series of younger women. Rhoda Doubleday, Gladys Deacon, who would later become the Duchess of Marlborough, and Ethel McGibbon, a Canadian beauty who caught him in a last burst of romantic ambition. He told Leone he wanted to marry Ethel, and even after decades apart, it stung. Leone, now older, wise, and still secretly devoted, felt the jealousy like a knife. But the affair, the real, breathless charge part of it, was over. They wrote to each other until the end. Arthur died in 1942, Leone followed in 1943, and then came the cover-up. King George VI, a man preoccupied with war, empire and the monarchy's future, took time to ensure that their letters would be destroyed. Lady Patricia Ramsay, Arthur's daughter, did as she was told. Shane Leslie, Leone's son and a writer of no small talent, was asked to do the same. And just like that, the paper trail of passion was gone. What remains is a rumour, a memory, a few surviving letters, the whispered suggestion of a love triangle that wasn't quite a scandal, wasn't quite a romance, nor quite explainable. What it was human. A prince caught between loyalty and longing, a duchess clinging to the illusion of control, a mistress drawn in too deep, and a world of glittering crowns where everything looked perfect until you looked too closely. If you missed the opportunity at the start of this video, then here's your second chance. If you'd like to support the channel and find all my links, just scan the QR code on screen. It'll take you to Patreon, social media, and even my books. Every bit of support helps me keep making videos like this. Even a thumbs up or a comment on the video increases its chances of being seen by more people. I really appreciate you being here, so thanks for watching.